What's up, everybody? It's Brandon from Box Office Banner and Cult Flick Symposium, and I'm here to talk to you about some more Fast and the Furious. No, not the Fast and the Furious, but Fast and Furious. Always weird when they do confusing titles like that. It's almost like they're going full-on reboot with it, and I guess that is exactly what they were trying to do here. Little did we find out that this would not quite be the footing they hoped to land. Now, I'm not saying everybody hates this movie. I'm not even saying I hate this movie. But they clearly tried to do something here with this one by elevating the action, making it feel bigger in scope, and they did not truly achieve that until Fast 5, where Fast and the Furious seemed to be reborn again. Thus forth, making this kind of a weird, clunky one for me, and I think most people amongst this franchise. Does this movie have some good moments, though? I'll just say this. I've never enjoyed this one. But there was a little bit more redeemable moments, as I said, this time around. Does that make it good, though? For a long time, this one has always been hard to quite put my finger on why I didn't like it as much. And I think a big reason why, now that I've watched it again, is there's not much fun to be had. Kind of thinking back on it, even the first one, second one, third one before this, and then after, even when they become bigger in scope. There's something about the Fast and Furious movies, even when they are dead-ass serious, and they can be dead-ass serious at times, there's always fun to be had. There's a great element of fun. There's like driving, racing, cracking jokes at each other, smacking the steering wheel like, whoa, I got you. Like there's always jokes being cracked. There's, funny moments even. This movie is very not fun, for lack of a better word. I mean, I got better words, but just to put it cut and dry. The serious nature of the movie does work for the most part, but that also falters to some degree too, that I'll jump into. But as far as the movie being fun, like I've noticed that this time around. This series and franchise, that is a calling card amongst, there can be serious moments, but you cannot lose that fun all the way throughout. And I think that's what made me feel the runtime more. This one's, all the first four movies are an hour and 40 minutes and some change, This one feels every bit of 2 hours or more. And I think it's because everybody in the movie the entire time is just, they got this face. It's not just Vin Diesel. It's just that the whole movie, it's so drugged down by the mannerisms and the acting amongst the movie. Not that the acting's bad, but what they're choosing to do and or being directed to do by Justin Lin. It just zaps me out of the movie, I've realized. Another thing about the movie, let's just talk about the villains. While the serious nature of the movie in spots, I think, work for me better this time around, the villains in this movie still do not. Like, they don't do anything for me. They're forgettable. I don't ever remember their names. I actually made a very strong point to remember like the main villain's name that was in the car of Paul Walker. That's like, do you remember where the underground mines are? Are you sure? I really tried this time. It starts with a B. And nope, it's gone because that's just how forgettable they are. You have these villains in these movies that are actually, pretty decent or over the top, in a crazy franchise like this that's at least memorable. These guys fall in that in-between zone that give you absolutely nothing. I do fall into the other category in this movie too of I feel bad for feeling that way because it's not this movie's fault. It's of stuff in the future, but I do feel myself every time like, oh, Letty's dead. And in my mind, because of future movies, weighing this one down, I'm like, yep, Letty's dead, sure. And then I'm watching Han like 2 seconds later, where you're having that moment that was actually good when I initially saw it, where it's like a sentimental moment, just like, your job's done here, Han, let's move on. Vin Diesel's talking to him. They have a nice little opening scene. I've always really liked the opening scene in this movie. And you're looking at that, you're like, he's like, oh, I heard about some shit in Tokyo, and you're like, oh, man, that's deep. But now it's not deep. oh, I can't wait to get to the movies when they bring these people back, you motherfuckers. Yeah, that weighs it down, but more of a product of the later movies. But I can't help but let it seep into me when I watch these installments. Let's talk about that intro because I brought it up initially. This is the one scene in the movie that really makes it feel like the coming movies. You know, it feels bigger than life. It feels ridiculous in nature, but also, dare I say, kind of fun. You know, this is a scene where you're watching it and it feels like, yeah, it's a little ridiculous, but it's that first time where you're like, oh my God, they're back and they're up in the ante. It has that kind of feel to me. And I'm like, okay, it's a little ridiculous, but, you know, go big or go home. We're bringing them back. Again, when I talk about how the future ones get too crazy, when it initially comes on board in the fifth one, Fast 5, and, you know, Fast 6, and it starts to kind of teeter off, it's very engaging and very fun when they get crazy. So when I first saw this crazy-ass scene where they're doing the semi-truck and they're trying to break it down like they normally do, but now Dom has one end of the semi-truck crash behind him, pinning him down where you got this other part of it rolling on fire. And Letty's like, Dom, and he's got to slide under the motherfucker, dude. That scene, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, we're in business. The rest of the movie, I could have fell asleep. Legitimately, because this, I don't know if it's the fun, I don't know if it's the lack of villains, I don't know if it's the way it dragged, I don't know if it's the police station. Yes, I'm gonna get there too, but this movie is the dullest movie in the franchise to me, and going forward, it is the most inconsequential movie. It doesn't feel like it has merit. Even like Tokyo Drift, I could see how that one gets deemed as that movie, but I actually think it's the one that comes right after, the fourth one. Because the third one, to me, is at least fun, and I have a good time with it. Now, it's subjective, and that's how I feel, but it at least feels like its own thing. And then it goes into the rest of it, and it ties in to some degree. The fourth one doesn't feel like its own thing. It feels like this weird blunder in the middle, and it's like, okay, we tried that once, and now we got it right. Let's forget about it. That's kind of at least how I feel when I watch the fourth one. It's like they didn't quite hit that trajectory yet, but props for not giving up because you came back with the fifth one, and you really did it right. That's kind of how I feel when I watch Fast and Furious. Now, let's talk about the police station. That's the other thing with the police station. I don't know what it is, but I think by this time, I'm just done seeing Brian, like, with the cops, like, doing his little undercover thing, and then he's either with him not being maybe even undercover, he's just at the fucking police station, and then he's got to meet up with Dom, and he's living this, like, I'm going back and forth. I'm tired of that. When I watch this franchise, I'm ready for him to go to the dark side fully, if you'll call our guys, you know, Vin Diesel and his crew, the dark side. I'm just ready to get to that point when I get to this movie. I'm tired of the back and forth with he's a cop, now he's this, he's a cop. I'm just past that. Let's get him in the fucking crew. Let's just get it out of the way. Don't need this anymore. And everybody at the police station, everything that goes on there, I feel very bored. I feel really just not engaged with any of those characters. Now, maybe that's because we needed Brian to get away from there and focus on a new lead at the police station in the sequels that's a badass in The Rock, which made me, when we go to the police, I'm like, oh, man, I'm invested. The Rock's eating up the scenery. I'm like, let's go, good versus bad. Very into that. By this movie, I'm not into that anymore with Paul Walker. I need a motherfucker that's out to get them, and he does not need to be connected to them, a la Paul Walker, a la people that are working with Paul Walker. Great choice by getting to the fifth one and doing that. So overall, this one is just one that's overshadowed by later entries, and it's not quite as fun as the earlier entries, so it's just somewhere in the middle. And like I said, there was some moments that just worked a little more for me. I love that scene where Dom realizes that, like, Brian was, what was he saying? Shit, this is how forgettable this movie is to me at times. He was tailing Letty or whatever, And he's like, when were you going to tell me? And he's just beating the shit out of Brian, like throwing him into a wall. And then Brian's like trying to fucking do his best to squirm out of it. He locks his legs around him. And then, of course, Dom, just being brute strength, picks him up, slams him down. He's not having that shit. And Brian's like, she did it for you, Dom. And then something about that emotion like that Brian has with Paul Walker is just like, he's like, fuck, I'm sorry, Dom. Like that was a good scene that I think I needed because, again, the rest of the movie, I'm just flatlining, like everybody's just mad faces. And aside from a few scenes like the opening that really pick me up on an adrenaline level, but for the most, the movie just does that. Another scene that makes me do that is actually at the police station. I love when Brian takes the one Officer Dickhead and he slams his nose into the wall when he thought he was going to be hot shit, and he's like slamming against the wall, bleeding. That scene always gets me hyped. But overall, guys, this movie, a few more redeemable qualities than I remember, but it's still the most unimportant movie in this franchise to me. So whereas this bumped up a little bit more to where I didn't necessarily hate it, I still didn't have a good time with it because whereas I liked it a little more and thought, it's okay this time around, which is the best I've ever had viewing-wise for this, I'm still sitting there just like, yeah, but let's go. We know what's coming. Don't really need it. So overall, it's a forgettable entry in this franchise to me. I don't know how popular that opinion is because I think a lot of people probably rank this one lower, but it's not necessarily one that people dislike like I do. And one more scene. I almost forgot. The scene that gets me more hyped than any scene. Although the guy that killed Letty, killed Letty. That's another gripe. Killed Letty. He watched her burn, as he says. Don't remember her face. That was actually a decent scene, too. God, you know what? I love this movie. Just kidding. But when Dom comes out of those underground tunnels, those were okay. Not too bad. It was something decent, I guess. I like weird shit like that. So I'll give it some thumbs up for the underground tunnels. When Dom came out of there, when that dude was fucking up Brian, and he just fucking hit the floor with the pedal and put the motherfucking wheelie up. The way that guy just shooting and then tries to get out of the way, and the teamwork of Brian grabbing his leg and I'm looking down, and the way that shit crashes into him gets me hyped every time. But that's like the one we get in this movie from me. The rest of the movie, most of the movie, not really feeling it. So yeah, not a big fan of this entry, obviously. We'll see where it falls in my ranking and what I actually rate it later on, but either way, love you guys. I'm going to keep these coming. About to go watch Fast 5 now. Damn it! It's a lot of reviews, a lot of movies. Hope y'all appreciate it. If not, I'm still putting it out there. Either way, thank you guys for the ones that do watch it. I love y'all. Does not go unnoticed. Appreciate all the support as always. Please like, share, subscribe. Let me know how you defend this movie because I'd love to hear that. Everybody's got their own opinions, right? Love y'all. Peace.